Okay, so today we're going to talk about music elements. If I could get everyone's attention. This is, from a compositional standpoint, perhaps the most important day. We've talked about song sections, how songs change over time. We've talked about rhythm and tempo, the speed at which a song goes, and how the cycles and loops work. We've talked about instruments and parts, right? Now we're going to actually talk about what those instruments and parts are, or those instruments are actually playing. I'm calling those elements. And elements, I've got two things here for you to refer to. One is the lecture note, two is Quizlet. Okay? And in the lecture notes, I've drawn out a diagram for your reference on the basic elements that are used in the music we listen to. Okay? And these elements are played across those different parts. So the rhythm, bass, accompaniment, and lead that we've talked about. Right? Okay. Elements can be short or long. Sorry, I'll use the mouse on the computer so that it records. Elements tend to either be short or long, and they either tend to be repetitive or not repetitive. Okay? And remember when we talked about repetitive, the more repetitive something is, the less you hear it. The less repetitive is, the more you hear it, right? If it's unique and it stands out, it's going to grab your attention. Lots of unique things, non-repetitive things get annoying after a period of time. Lots of repetitive things get boring after a period of time, which might be annoying as well. Okay? These are the main elements I want you to know here. And I'm going to, so they're mapped out on this chart. And you might want to refer to that chart as I'm talking here. I'm going to switch over to Quizlet and look at these particular elements. I'm just going to get Logic started in the background while we're doing that. The first most basic element is a pad. Okay? And a pad is when an instrument holds a note down. It just holds it. That's a pad. Got it? Easy, right? Second most basic element is what we're calling a pedal in this class. The term pedal might be used for other things in traditional music. The term pedal could have been used for a pad, or it could have been used for a riff, which we'll talk about here in a second, that's repeating. But we're going to use it for the term when you're just playing a note over and over and over and over. So a pad is a held note. Da. A pedal would be a repeated note. Da 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 da. That easy? Any questions? And these basically are going to move to more complex as we go. A beat is a pattern of notes that's played over and over. So not a single note, but it's several notes. And a beat means it's happening in the percussion part of a song. So it's rhythmic. There's no pitch to it. That make sense? So a beat would be like boom, cha, boom, boom, cha, boom, cha, boom, boom, cha. It doesn't even it lasts a bar, right? So I've got usually a beat is about a bar long. Sometimes half a bar, sometimes two. Short, repetitive, percussive. If I take that beat and I put pitch to it, it becomes what we're calling a riff. And a riff is a short repeating pattern of notes that have pitch. So a riff might be doom, dump, doom, doom, dump, doom, dump, doom, doom, dump, doom, dump, doom, doom, dump, doom, dump, doom, doom, dump. Does that make sense? The music that we listen to is loop-based. Thus, riffs and beats are probably the main basis of the music we listen to at this point. Okay? So when you go find loops in there, most of them are riffs, short repeating pattern of notes. Okay? A melody, going to the other extreme, is a long, not so repetitive series of notes, sequence of notes that makes a phrase. And a melody is developed from our speech. When we talk in sentences, right? So I breathe, I speak out a bunch of words, I pause, put a period at the end of it, I breathe again. Okay? And that's the way melody works. It would be like a phrase, a verbal phrase that we would sing, or vocal phrase, or instrumentally. Many of the instruments we play require blowing or something like that, and it's usually about the length of a human breath or sentence that phrase lasts. In our music, that comes out to about 4, sometimes 8 bars, depending on the situation. Okay? So a melody is da 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 da, whatever, right? Something like that. Does that make sense? Long. So we have these short beats, very repetitive, these riffs, quite repetitive, and then these melodies over the top. The melodies are the hardest thing to write, by far, by far. Riffs and beats, man, you can go in there and pull those up all the time, right? But finding a good melody that fits over the top of some riff and beats is very difficult. Okay? That's the challenge, the biggest challenge we face. A couple more elements that I'd like you to be able to identify. A line. A line is a pretty unique element. It's used mainly in jazz when you hear the bass going in jazz, right? So the line is very not repetitive and very long. In fact, the idea of the line is that it sounds like it never stops. So when you hear a bass line going doom 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 boo doo 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 doo, it never stops, right? It's a very unique element, not used in a lot of places except for in jazz bass and maybe your music now, right? Maybe there's somewhere you can start to get a line in there. Really extends the song and makes it sound more fluid. Okay? Long sequence of notes, it's usually rhythmically repetitive, but pitches are not. A fill is a short repeated or a short sequence of notes that's not repeated. So we're playing a beat, cha, boom, boom, cha, and then something comes and goes, boo boo doo, boo boo doo, boo doo doo, cha, doo doo, cha, doo, cha, doo doo, doo 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 doo, cha. Those fast notes that I'm singing are fill. I don't repeat them again. They just come in at points of emphasis. And the greatest points of emphasis are two. One is when you're transitioning to a new section. The other is when you are filling in between another instrument. So say the saxophone's playing. My drums are filling in between the melody phrases on the saxophone. Does that make sense? Fills can be either percussive or pitched. Okay, so a lot of times you'll hear in jazz, you'll hear a lot of pitched. You know, the horn section will counterpoint and play in between the vocal lines. Someone will sing, and then it'll have a little fill coming in. It usually takes the lead for a split second. Okay? A break is when something stops. That's pretty easy, right? We listen to Calvin Harris. The chorus starts. There was no drums, no bass. It just went. A hit or stab is when there's just one note or two notes going bloom, bloom, bloom. Sort of like a fill, but it's even shorter. Okay? Just for a point of emphasis. A crash cymbal might be considered a hit or stab. Okay? Chords are when you play more than one note at a time. And to truly understand chords, we have to understand music theory. We'll try to touch on that a little bit later in the class. But the idea is that you have more than one note playing at once. That's a chord. Okay? A progression means you're taking those chords and you're changing them over time. Usually one chord per measure, something like that, or one chord per two measures, and you progress them. You play a sequence of notes for a bit, then you play another sequence, and then you probably go back to that first sequence at some point. Okay? Tutti means everybody's playing. That's Italian for all. Okay? So tutti was when the whole orchestra would play. For us, it's our chorus when we have all four of those loops going in all four of those parts. That make sense? Two important things I want you to be able to do that are going to be in your assignments as we go. Counterpoint and parallel or similar motion. In fact, you know, I'm going to change that to similar. I think that might just be a little bit better. Call it similar. Okay. Counterpoint means things are moving at different times. So when I have something happening in the lead, like I just did, da 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 da, those are two voices that are talking with each other, okay? And it happens all the time. It happens in rhythmic music. It happens in vocal music, okay, and pitched music. I just had a drum circle and on Sunday, and I would play a little lead part, and then the other person would play, and then I would play and the lead play, and we'd go back and forth, and we'd start talking, right? Okay. Same thing in the choir. You'll hear the sopranos go, and then the bass will go, right? Counterpoint is when two different parts are acting at different times. We'll listen to some examples of that. Okay. Similar motion means that they're acting at the same time. Okay? Everybody's moving along at the same time. It causes a point of emphasis. Okay? So counterpoint is going to cause things to blur. It's going to blur the meter. It's going to blur the beat. It's going to blur the sections. When they start all going together, wham, and they hit at the same time, you start to emphasize the beat. You're emphasizing the meter. You're emphasizing the sections. Okay? And we want a combination of both. In general, our verses will have more counterpoint in them, be more blurred, and our choruses will be more similar motion, things in parallel, hitting at the same times. Does that make sense? Couple terms I would like you to know. Homophonic and heterophonic, just straight out of Latin, right? Same sound, different sounds. So things that are homophonic are like the string family. The violin, the viola, the cello, and the bass all sound pretty similar. They're just higher or lower in pitch. Okay? The percussion family is less homophonic, it's more heterophonic. The snare and the kick and the hi-hat sound pretty different. Right? They're pretty different. Okay? Your songs will have, again, a combination of heterophonic and homophonic. You'll want some sounds that sound similar together that blend, and you want some that'll contrast. Okay? The biggest contrast we have is percussive sounds with melodic sounds, right? With the lead melodies that are long phrases, the percussion are short and choppy. Those things go together well. Okay? But you want to have some things be consistent. You can't have everything all over the place. Okay? In these elements, in addition to having homophonic and heterophonic sounds, we can have other components with them, which is monophonic or polyphonic. Monophonic means one voice, poly means many. Our lead instrument and our bass instrument is almost always monophonic. Our accompaniment instrument is often, and I'm not going to say always, but a high percent of the time, polyphonic. Okay? That would be a guitar. You strum across 4 or 5 strings, right? That'd be a piano. You play a chord. That would be a string section where they're each playing different notes. Might be a choir where they're playing different notes at the same time. Okay? What that does when you have polyphony among a homophonic sound, meaning like all the notes in the piano sound sort of similar, and we play more than one at once, it's a chord, it's polyphonic, and it tends to blur in the background. When we play one note, it tends to stand out. So in our songs, we want to have that. We want things that are poking out and things that are going in the back to support it. So we can use that both in terms of frequency or pitch. High notes stand out more, low notes disappear more. Well, we can also have it in terms of homophony and polyphony, meaning if it sounds similar to other notes and there's a lot of them, it'll start to blur into the background and you start to not hear it as much because you can't pick out the individual notes. Okay? That's why when a fire truck goes by, it doesn't go, it's not a chord of notes, it's a single pitch, right? That's very distinct. It really pops out when you hear it. Arrangement is what we're basically doing in this class. Okay? We're composing through arrangement. Arrangement means putting the sounds together and making them sound good, really. And a good arranger makes it so the composition doesn't have to be that great and the mix doesn't have to be that great because they've done the arranging so well that it all fits together already. We were already learning how to do bass, accompaniment, lead, have them be separate, and we're learning how to do these sections. Now we're going to be learning how to put these elements together and have them fit together well so that the person mixing it, who will probably be us too, shouldn't have to do a whole lot. We have sounds that aren't fitting well together or elements that aren't fitting well together. We should get rid of one of them. We shouldn't try to make them fit. Okay? That's like trying to make garlic, vinegar, and cinnamon work really well together, right? Why would you do that? Questions? Those are the basic terms I want you to know for Thursday. Okay? I'm going to just pop over to the map here of them and see how they look over time. So, I guess I can't go and get that any higher. Short, long, repetitive, non-repetitive. The most repetitive short thing we can have is a pedal. We can play the same darn note over and over and over. Dun 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 dun. Okay? The next most repetitive short thing we have is the beat, right? Boom, cha, do do do, cha, do, cha, do do do, cha. Right? And then it repeats over and over. 1 to 2 bars usually. A riff is just a beat basically played on the bass or the guitar or some instrument analogous to those two in between, right? So beat or riff might be dum dum ba dum 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 bum, right? There's a 2-bar riff that's going to just keep going over and over and over. A pad, I'm saying, is not repetitive, but it's very long. Because when you hold down a note, you just hold it down for a long time. Okay? Washers in the background. Melodies are pretty long and somewhat repetitive, but not repetitive too. Okay, kind of in between. And we'll talk a little bit. Next class, I'm going to go into melody more. We're going to talk about how to make a melody. Bass lines, which you could use in other instruments, are not repetitive. That's the intent. They don't repeat. Okay, and they're very long. And then these hits, fills, and breaks are all very short, but not repetitive. They come in and add emphasis. Okay. We might actually I might add a new element that's really coming in, which is the effect, right? The sound effect. So we have those swooshes and those sweeps and those whooshes, right? Those can generally be kind of long and not repetitive, right? So those could be kind of up in here. And why do we use those? Because we suck at melody now. We don't know how to write melodies, so we have to use these long, swishing, automated things to do it for us. Our music's becoming less melodic. But we still need something long. So I would like you guys to refer to this, okay? Some of them you'll see this progress thing I have on here. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that your pad or your pedal might change over time. An example of a pad not changing over time, say I had 4 bars and it went do, 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 do. I played the same pad 4 times in a row. A progressing pad might change on 1 or 2 of those, right? So it might go do, 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 do. I'm cycling through different starting points for my pad. A progression means it's starting at a different position. It's a chord progression. The chords are changing. The notes are changing. Does that make sense? The same thing could happen with a pedal. I'm playing the same note, do 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 do, but it could shift. Do 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 do. Hear that? I'm just shifting the starting point of that pedal over time. And that progression will usually last, the reason I have 4 of them there is it will usually last about 4 bars, and the progression will either repeat or go somewhere else. Okay? Riffs, same way. Do 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 shift do 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 shift do 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 do. Does that make sense? I'll play through some of those in just a second. Melodies shift a little bit. That's the whole idea. Dun day. Dun, dun. Repeat, but it's shifted to a different part, and then it goes somewhere different. Da 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 da. Okay, so melodies have some repetition and some progression in them, and then not. Then they don't repeat. And there's a magic combination there that no one knows except for Paul McCartney. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at what those things look like. Let's hop in here. Oh, it's already set up. Great. Oh, of course we have the sound situation here. I know I always just expect it to work. Okay, so good. System settings.
Michael, tell us why you decided to...
Okay. Wow, I was singing a C. That's pretty good. Pretty close, at least. What is that? What element is that? Not quite. Pad, because it's lasting so long. They're lasting a measure each, right? A pedal would look more like this. Pedal would be this. Does that make sense? Very repetitive. Pads, very long.
What's the difference between a pedal and a beat?
Okay, we're going to get to that in just a second. So I guess a true pad in this situation might be this, right? Just hold that note. Okay. Questions on that? Okay. So pad, pedal, short and repetitive, right? This might be a more common version of it right here. Okay. And those can progress. So what I was doing here earlier, right? And I can go whammo. Starts over here. So this is a pedal that is progressing. Does that make sense? This is called a closed progression. Why is it called a closed progression? Because when we cycle through it, we start and end on the same note. Does that make sense? We're starting on the C here, we end on the C. An open progression might be something more like this. Let's say we do this. This would be an open one. It doesn't end where it started. Right? Back home now. Does that make sense? I want you to be able to hear if it's a closed or open progression. Comes back. Questions on that? We could do that same thing with pads. Said pads are just long notes, basically, so we could do that same progression. And maybe we would even hold it there. Pads. Any questions on that? Easy, right? Let me just change this now. Oops. What'd you call that? I would accept either pedal or beat on that. Does that make sense? Because it's the same note over and over and over and over, but it's percussive, so it's generally a beat. But there's no indication of what the meter is here, is there? It's just a pulse, right? Over and over and over. Fairly pedalish. So now if I do this, whoops, sorry. And I delete everything. And I start doing this. Now we got a beat, because we can hear some sort of meter. We know there's a 1 and a 2, right? We're not just going at the same time. Oh, you guys should have heard that in your songs. Points where the kick just goes doosh, 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 doosh. Can't tell. And then it goes doo, 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 doo. All of a sudden your song has meter. Does that make sense? Two different things. One where you're just playing pulse. Pulse is going to be more fluid and less repetitive. It's because it's so repetitive, it gets more fluid because there's no starting stop loop. You start adding in that snare, you start to get a backbeat, and you start to be able to hear a 1 and a 2, maybe a 3 and a 4, right? Because now I can take that and I can mess things up a little bit, right? Right? Now you hear the cycle happening every measure. 1, 1, right? So I went from repeating the same note every pulse, dun, 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 to repeating the thing every 2 pulses, dun, dun, to now repeating once a measure, dun, 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 right? Does that make sense? So a beat is inherently longer than just a pedal because it starts to implicate meter, not just pulse. If I take that beat, Vanessa, is this answering your question? I take that beat, and just for the record, that was a yes. I've got my riff. A riff is a beat on a percussion instrument. Does that make sense? I might go. Might take this. Maybe I'll do something. Oops. I messed up a little bit, sorry. It's very exciting. It's my riff, right? Play right along with those drums. They just play together and everybody happy. So if that riff and the drums are playing all at the same time, what kind of motion would we call that? Similar or parallel motion, right? If they're playing at different times, we'd call it counterpoint. Okay? Counterpoint. We'll listen to some songs with that. Okay? These riffs can progress just like the beat, or I'm sorry, just like the pedals and the pads. So if I took that, I could take this. I'll move this one up here. Now there probably would be a little bit different note there, but got it? Is that a closed or open progression? Closed. Is the riff itself open or closed? Closed. It's ending on the same note it started on, isn't it? If I went like this and moved this down to there, it would be too low, by the way. Now it's a open riff. You're waiting for the one. It drives to the one more. Closed riff will settle you before it jumps to the next thing. Okay? They're just different. By the way, most of your bass, you don't want to go much below C1. I would not recommend writing songs in the key of A or G or that sort of thing because you can't get down in good bass. You generally want to be, and there's a reason guitars are tuned the way they are, you generally want to be around C and above, which means it's E, which is what the lowest note on a bass, a normal 4-string bass is. There's a reason for that. Okay, so watch out that you're not getting much below this C1. We'll talk about that more as we go. All right, so we have looked through now. We have gone through a pedal, a pad, a beat, and a riff, and we even progressed it, didn't we? We even progressed them, which means they just have different starting points in different measures, or different points in the measure. Any questions on that? Okay. A melody is usually going to be in the lead part, okay? And let's see if I can kind of mimic a melody here. Now, like I said, I'm not Paul McCartney. So I'm going to take it up higher, and the melody is usually going to be up around C3 or even C4. Starts to get a little high there, right? A little high, okay? Best range for melodies is right in this area, which is, we'll get into it. For the musicians, that's usually about the third of the chord. If you're playing in the key of E and you're humming around a G sharp or a G, it's going to be a nice sound on the lead, okay? So I'll switch keys here real quick. Kind of sounded melodic, didn't it? So check it out. This is how I'm and then what you do is you mess with it. And then maybe I progress the darn thing, right? See if I can keep it in the same. All right, make sure I got that. Oh, I'm in A. Let's see what I'm doing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll move that. No, not I'm G. Okay. Whew. B flat. That's where I want to be. Okay, so here it is. I just progressed it once. Sorry. It's a little boring for a melody. It's starting to sound like a 2-bar riff that progressed, isn't it? Okay. So what do? You mess up a little bit on this one too. So maybe could do it real, maybe something silly and simple like this. Our melodies tend to anticipate. What does that mean? That they end sooner than we want them to. They end a little sooner. That's the point of. And then it starts over again. And then maybe a little bit there. Progress. Does that make sense? I could have that over my bass still down below, right? And after just telling you never do it in the key of G, here I am doing it in the key of G, which means the bass is going to be too high. So maybe my bass is doing this. So cute, right? Questions? So the melody, before it repeats, lasts the whole 4 bars, but there are these little riff repetitive parts, right? I'm making use of riff, pad, pedal within that melody to make it somewhat repetitive and somewhat not. And like I said, there's a magic to that. There's a magic to that. I mean, I just diced it up there, but no one's going to pay me for that melody. Right? Maybe if I played it enough. But okay. Questions on that? Okay. If I wanted to be contrapuntal about it, I might do something like this. This is the sort of thing I would like you guys to be able to do. Watch this. Say I take this and I make this pedal more paddish. So maybe, let me zoom way in. Maybe I've got something more like this. So that the bass moves when the melody isn't. Watch this. I have no idea how this. Actually, I do have an idea how this is sound.
Would this still be considered a pedal?
So here's what I'm doing now: is I've got basically I'm putting fills in the bass because they're not going to repeat. Does that make sense? So I've got a pad pedal. I don't know. We'll decide whether that's a pad or pedal. Okay, and then I'm going to move that bass when the voice isn't moving. And then I'm going to go back to that pad pedal when the voice is moving. And then I'm going to move that bass. So I've got a little riff here that's sort of progressing, right? Let's see if I can get it right. Oh, I think the last one. Yes. Here they're counterpointing each other. And it almost sounds better to not have that play there. We had a drum beat by there. That's counterpoint. Hearing it? Oftentimes you'll want to anticipate in your lead, so maybe it goes something like that. as I'm putting that together, I'm thinking about pad, pedal, riff, melody, fills. Is that making sense? It gets more and more complex, and then we go back to Calvin Harris and remember, wait, he sold millions of records, not getting complex, right? So we don't want to get too complex, but you want a little bit of it. You want to be able to manage that and make it interesting, right? Okay. Questions on that? No questions whatsoever. That all makes sense. Luis?
So it's, do you tell us about when it goes up and like something goes down? It's like kind of predicting when it's working.
Yeah, so one thing I didn't do here, I'm working in MIDI right now, right? This is a MIDI track. And we'll get into this more later, but I would like you to use these same concepts in your loops. Does that make sense? You should be able to look on the page and see when one loop's really busy, the other loop's slow. Or when they're really busy, they're doing it together, right? What will generally happen in the bass and melodies, they often will move in opposite directions, which is what that counterpoint is, right? So when the bass goes down, the melody goes up. When the melody goes down, the bass goes up. This, I have not done a good job of that. And what would probably normally happen in this one is because the bass is going up here, the melody would probably come down instead of being up here. Let's see. What note is that? That's a C. But what am I doing here? Right. It would probably come down. I don't really want to go to a G. And maybe it goes down there. And then it would go up to this. So it'd be something more like it. So as the bass comes up here, this goes down. And then when you screw up the starting points, it sounds really bad. And then maybe I'll have this one go down too. So this will go. Let's see, we'll go there, I think. And that's what it sounds like. Thanks. So I've just shifted the melody. The pattern's the same, but the melody's coming down as the bass is coming up. You see that? And then they stretch back out. Keep some more balance in there. We'll talk about that more as we go. So what I want you guys to be thinking as you're working with your loops, how do I get them talking to each other? Especially that bass and that lead. You can get those two talking together, and the accompaniment can kind of wash in the background. If I want the accompaniment to wash in the background, what kind of sounds would I be looking for? Based on what we talked about today. Pads. What else about them? Homophonic, polyphonic, right? They sound similar to each other. There's more than one note. It'll disappear in the background, the less it's playing, okay? If I want it to be a lead part, I want it to have a melodic phrase. I want it to repeat somewhat and then dice it up so that it doesn't repeat everything all the time. If I want it to be holding down the fourth and the bottom, it's the bass. I keep repeating that riff over and over and over and over again, okay? Okay. All right, so I think I'll just keep the thing recording, and what I'd like you to do is get out a piece of paper. And I'm going to go ahead and bring this song analysis framework down here. So I have this thing called the Song Analysis Framework that you'll find in the class page on this week. Now, fortunately, I have to make it a little small to fit on the screen. Sorry about that. I'd like you to go ahead and draw something similar to that on your page, if you could. Oh, I can do this and I could write right in it. And then it'll be recorded for the... In fact, if I write on this right here, I can keep this down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up YouTube, and I have a playlist, also linked to from this week, on musical elements, okay? And we're going to listen through a couple songs, and what I want to do is analyze them. So as we go through this song, I'm going to ask you to write the time that you hear a section happen. So previously we've been working vertically. You would have written 0 0 0 intro, 10 seconds verse, 40 seconds chorus, right? I want you to start writing them horizontally on this one. So we go 0 0, and then we'd say maybe at 10 seconds, and then there's another section at 40 seconds, and we'd say intro, verse, chorus. Does that make sense? Then I would identify the tempo of the song. Maybe andante. The meter, for right now, we're just going to be doing 4/4, but we'll start to add some other meters as we go. Okay. For this class, I don't think we need to worry too much about artist, genre, year, and that sort of thing. Then what we're going to do is we're going to start to go in here and we're going to listen through these different parts. We're familiar with the parts that are going across here. We want to start to write some elements that are happening within those parts. Does that make sense? Okay. Some of you have seen this before. So we're going to start with this song right here. We'll start with White Stripes, and I want you guys to start to fill this out, okay? And let's see how you do. Don't get yourself overwhelmed. If you can't hear it all at once, that's fine. What you should work on first is see if you can get the sections and maybe the tempo on the first time through. Then we'll come through and see if we can get the parts. Oh, so let me explain a little more, sorry. I've explained this before to other people, not to you. So once we get into these squares, certain things are going to be playing in the different parts in the different sections, right? So we might have, the song might start with a guitar at 0 0. And the guitar might be playing a riff. Does that make sense? And then we might see the bass might come in a little bit after the guitar, right? So we might hear the bass come in, and the bass is going to play a pedal at 5 seconds. Does that make sense? The drums might not come into the chorus. And then we might say drums are playing a beat at 40 seconds. Does that make sense? We're mapping the elements in this song against the sections this way and the parts going across. Any questions on that? So don't get yourself overwhelmed when the song starts. See if you can just figure out the parts, the sections first, and then we'll come through and we'll start to drop in the elements. Now, I picked this song because the elements are pretty simple in this song, right? Okay. Let's see where we get. All right, so here we go. And try to keep the time where you can see it. Here it is. Sorry. Ah. Raise your hand if you got all the parts. Or the sections, sorry. All the sections. Okay, I'll play it again. Here we go. All right. What's the tempo of this song? This is, you guys should have this in your pocket. Like, presto? Who said presto? Obed, can you stand up and walk to the song? See what you got. Yeah, you can. Come on. Okay, Obed's going to walk to it. We're going to watch him. Okay? I'm going to start. If I see quizzes coming in that have the wrong tempo on it, the tempo markings. What are the 4 tempo markings? Fastest? Next fastest? Marching? Walking? Slow strolling. Okay? I'm going to start putting this really on quizzes, and you have to get them right. Because the way to get them right is to get off your and walk, right? I had to do that to grade my rock appreciation things this week. I had to walk around in my office to the songs. If I have to do that after 25 years of doing this, I know you have to get off to it. So let's see if you can walk around. And you can't just stand in one place. You actually have to move. That's where you start to feel it. Keep just walking around a little bit. How's he looking? Is that a comfortable walk for him? Not quite, right? It's a little what? Fast. So we call something as a little fast for walking and allegro. Does that make sense? Good. Thank you very much. Nice walking. Allegro. Questions? Okay. We had an intro. Okay. Well, when did the verse start? What's that? Was it that soon? I think it was a ways in there. 16 seconds, okay? So we're going to define the verse as when the vocals start for most of the music we listen to, right? Okay. What happened next? Who's got the next time? 46, 47, and what was that section? What section is that? Pre-chorus? So what I would do is if it goes to another section, I just write down the word chorus, right? And then I wait to see what happens next. What happens next? What section is that? Why is it the chorus? If someone says, how does the song go, what do you say? Bum, 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 right? So this is interesting. It's a chorus with no lyrics. Kind of like the Calvin Harris, right? And then you go back and you write the word pre in the section before. That make sense? What's the other song form that we're going to be listening for? This is verse, chorus, verse, chorus. What's the other form? The AABA, verse, refrain, right? Okay. Verse, chorus means AB, AB. Verse, refrain means AA. And then into something else, right? Okay. But he went to another section, which is pretty much means it has to go to a chorus. What time was the chorus? Did someone have that time? 51? Okay. And then what was the next time someone had? Something happened a little bit before that, and I'd be curious what you guys think. There's the chorus, right? What was that right there? Solo? So we're going to define the chorus as starting when the vocals come in, right? Or the verse, sorry. So we know at 127 the verse comes back in, okay? So I'm going to write that in. And this song has a weird thing. It's almost like a post-chorus. It's one of the things that makes this song unusual. It does the dun 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 dun, and then it does the dun 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 dun, which was the pre-chorus again. And then it almost goes back all the way to the intro. It starts the whole song over. So there's some question marks about what's going on in here. You could call it a post-chorus. You could call it intro again. But somewhere right around that period, it is going back to right around 107, right? It's going into this other sort of post-chorus section. Okay, it's unusual. That's what makes the song unusual. Plus the fact that there's no lyrics in the chorus. All right, so now that we've got our sections in, which just judging by the looks on everyone's faces, we're going to be doing a little more work on this, which is fine. We've got our sections in. We want to start to add our elements that make up these sections. Okay? Sections are made up and created by the elements that play them. If there's no element driving a section, you're not going to know it's a different section. If the element just keeps going, it doesn't make any difference between the two sections. And we lose our song form, which is the first most, I'm going to say second most important thing in our music after the pulse. Okay? So let's start from the beginning and hear the section. Okay. Okay, which section are we in? Intro section. What part are we in? What instrument is playing? Bass. Boom, boom. It is pretty high for the bass, okay? But that is a bass. Okay. Why is it so high?
It's a baritone guitar.
Is it seriously a baritone guitar?
Yeah, it's like right in between the guitar and the bass. Like
He literally plays a baritone guitar.
for this song, yeah, for the recording.
Perhaps. Dun, 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 dun. 'Cause that is... That's interesting. Yeah, that's pretty high. That's pretty high up there. Have you seen it?
I tried learning the song when I was younger, and I could never match the tone.
The tone, right?
Guitar or bass.
It's a,
So I looked into it, and he uses a baritone guitar for the recording.
interesting.
When he plays it live, he plays it on a baritone, and that's why he's still able to do the solo on the same guitar.
Interesting. Okay, let's call that bass though. Okay, because he's using it mainly like a bass, right? Because we hear the guitar come in later, right? It's just a high bass sound. High bass sound. Okay, so we've got intro. We've got a bass part playing. We're saying it's a baritone guitar playing the bass part. And what is it playing? What element is it playing?
Riff.
It's a riff, right? Boom. This song is extremely riff-based. Dun, 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 dun. That is the riff, and it repeats over and over. A short repeating pattern of notes. That make sense? So we would come down here and we'd say bass playing a riff at 0, 0. Just like that. Questions? Then something happens, right? At 9 seconds. What happens at 9 seconds? Drums. So we're still in which section of the song time-wise? Intro. And which part are we in now? The rhythm part. What instrument is playing? Bass drum. We'll just call it kick. And what is it playing? Pedal. There's no identification of meter, right? So we would go kick, pedal, at 5 seconds. That make sense? What happens at 17? The lead starts, right? So which section are we in now, time-wise? We move into the verse, right? That's how we're defining the verse, as someone starts singing. So we would write that in the lead part. We'd write voice. And what is the voice playing? What element? A melody. At, excuse me. Melody at 16. That make sense? The bass continues playing, so what I usually just write is some sort of arrow, whoops, like that, just kind of pointing that the bass continues and the drums keep playing. Okay? Because the element didn't change, really. That's supposed to be an arrow, by the way. Kind of funky. All right, let's keep listening. Nothing else is going on, is it? There's nothing in accompaniment. We can write a big fat X right there. We can write a big fat X right there. Easy, easy song. Listen for the next change. Now what happens? Now we bring in the snare, right? And the drum simple pulse turns into a beat because we start to have two different things working against each other. Okay, so the drums start to play a beat at what, about 32? Yeah, right at 32, okay? So then we just simply go here and we'd say drum, beat at 32. That make sense? We're starting to identify the meter. It makes the song change, doesn't it? It makes the song start to drive in a different way. Suddenly we've got a meter happening. Okay, we didn't have that so much before in the drums. See if you can listen to, I'm going to back up and play just through this verse again before we jump to the pre-chorus. I'd like you to listen to the vocal melody. See if you can hear how he does. It repeats it. It's the second time, right? What does he do the third time? Changes it. And then he goes back. Kind of, it's sort of a closed one. It goes 1, 2, changes, comes sort of back. Closed phrasing. See if you can hear the 4 phrases in the melody there. Here we go. It's the second phrase, right? Then he's going to change it the third time. And then he'll stay kind of back there again. Hear that? Those 4 phrases? Okay, what happens right around 47? Element-wise, what's going on? We go to a new section. Accompaniment comes in. That's the big thing, right? And what is the accompaniment instrument? Guitar. And what is the guitar playing? Let someone else answer, okay? No. So what's the guitar playing? A pedal. Very good, Luis. Okay, guitar is playing a pedal. Can anyone hear anything more about that pedal? What was the term we're using for that? Progressing. That pedal's progressing. Is literally going from G to A. Dun 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 dun. An open progression goes back to the one, right? Back to the riff. Guitar pedal. And so what I would put is something like progressing pedal at 47. Does that make sense? What else is going on there? What else changes? Let's see over here. Drums. What happens in the drums? What do we hear in the drums? Let's listen again. What is it? No, not a break. It's a big hit, right? On the what part of the drum? Cymbal. Okay, so we have these cymbal hits. Starting at 47. Oops. That make sense? All right. What's going on in the bass? See if you guys can hear what's going on in the bass. Did you guys hear it? Even though it's not really a bass? The baritone guitar, what's it doing? So we got this riff going right here, right? What's that?
Is it a pad?
It's not a pad. It's actually playing right with the guitar, making it hard to hear. Okay? When things are moving in, what kind of motion is that when they're doing the same thing? Similar motion. It gets hard to hear the different parts. They start to blur into one. Okay? That's the point. So what that sounds like, it just makes it sound fatter, but what there is there's a baritone guitar underneath there playing the same pedal that the guitar is playing. Dun 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 dun. So they are changing bass, and it's actually a progressing pedal, just like the guitar. Okay, and what's the voice doing? What's it doing there? What element is that? Kind of quiet in here today, guys. Vanessa, what element is that?
I don't know, I'm not paying attention, sorry.
What's that?
I'm not paying attention, I'm sorry.
You're not paying attention. Today would be a good day to pay attention if you want to do well in this class. Mario?
Trying to hear it.
Can you hear the voice?
I can hear the voice.
Okay.
It's like a higher tone. It builds it up.
So what elements do we have to choose from? Is it playing a pad or a pedal?
It's more of a. I think it'd be a pad because the pedal is too.
No, this is how a pad would sound. Ba!
So pedal is more repetitive.
Pedal would be ba da 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 da.
Yeah, it's just pedal.
Okay. But do you hear how it's a whole phrase? He's not just singing the same method coming from Mount Bo-" Now he's singing a similar note, but he's changing the phrasing and the timing of it over time. Okay, so almost always the voice is going to be singing a melody. Almost always. Okay, it's a long phrase. It doesn't end for almost 2 bars. Okay, now he happens to be hitting a lot of the same note. It's a boring melody, but because he's changing the tempo and the pitch of it, I'm sorry, because he's changing the rhythmic timing of it, it's not like a pedal where it's just doing the exact same thing. Does that make sense? You're rarely going to have a pedal in the lead part. Rarely have a. Yeah, so if you listen here, basically what he's doing is singing a secondary melody, right? So he's got this first melody going on in the chorus, and then what I would lobby is that in the pre-chorus, he's okay. Second melody, different melody. The stain is coming from my bones, whatever he sings, right? So we got this first melody. Right, this first melody. And basically just sings an air melody here. Da 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 da. Right? Da 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 da. It's not a riff. It's too long for a fill. It's not a pedal. It's not a pad because things are changing, right? So that's a melody. That's how a melody works. It lasts those full 2 bars. Okay. What happens in the chorus then? Joel, can you give me anything going on there?
Brings everything back.
Everything back. So we're back to what? What's the main element that's going on there?
The chorus brings back like the riffs.
The riff, right? And what instruments are playing that riff? Guitar and what we're calling bass. So for the first time, we got the guitar in there playing the riff. Okay, and what's the other element that's going on there? Frankie? Can we play it? The lead's gone. Good. So there's no lead. Okay. And what else is playing? Rhythm. And what's the what instrument? Yeah. So well, it's the drums. With lots of cymbal, we could call it, right? And what is it playing? What element? Nope. Because pedal would be only repeating the same note over and over. Beat. Okay. Playing a beat at 51 seconds. Questions? Yeah.
So in that case, the guitar would still be considered the accompanying instrument, not
So I've had this discussion many, many times. The reason that you could move it up to here. You could say the guitar is now playing the lead. In this song, it might make more sense because the guitar is playing when the voice isn't playing and no one sings over the voice. Some songs, they'll start with the guitar and then the voice comes over the top where it's like, well, then it was just the accompaniment starting ahead of time. So I think you could look at it either way. Yeah, good question.
easier to like keep the guitar in the accompaniment section.
That's my instinct is the guitar is playing kind of in the same range the whole time, so let's keep it down there. He's singing up above the guitar. So pitch-wise, it kind of makes sense that way. Okay. Yeah, Luis. The guitar? Yeah, if they become kind of lead guitar, you'd hear it as lead guitar. And yeah, exactly. Which that isn't quite, right? It's playing a riff over and over. Leads generally have melodies in them. Generally have melodies. That's the hardest part. Even that Calvin Harris. It takes me a while to sing that, right? It starts to sound like a melodic phrase. It's a repetitive, riffy sounding one, progressing, but it lasts so long that it's kind of the same duration as a sentence, right? As we speak.
So riff is a small amount.
So riffs are very short, right? So we come back to this guy right here. If you guys can keep this in your mind. Riffs are short, right here. Sorry, no, that's a little low. Riffs are short. Okay. All right, so I am not. I'm looking at you guys' faces, and everyone's like this. Everyone's like this. So I want to do another song here. I feel you guys get a little antsy, but if we can push through one more song before we take a break. What I'm doing here should be easy for you. This should be easy for you. If it's not, you've got some work to do over the next week or so, right? I want you guys to be hearing these things. This is very much going to be on the midterm. You're going to have to analyze a song and be able to dice it up. Because you're going to be writing songs, and if you can't do this yourself, if you can't hear it in another song, there's no way you can do it yourself. Does that make sense? So as you're listening through these songs, picture those loops on the tracks. Picture that rhythm track going, right? You should be able to picture in this song, wow, there's nothing in that lead or accompaniment at the beginning. The song just starts with that bass loop. And then the kick loop comes in a little bit afterwards, right? After a couple measures. You should be able to see the blue or whatever color you have made your loops. Right? Okay. So let's do one more song here before we take a break.
By royal decree, our King of Sweden Day sales event has been
And what you can do is you can, excuse me, you can use the same squares if you want, or you can write a new one. But again, we'll want about 7 columns and at least 4 rows, probably 5 if you want it tempo and meter. So I'll give you a couple seconds to get that set up and do the same up here. No, but I mean like now. Like as I'm talking, I really want you to connect with it if you can. You said you weren't paying attention. I want to make sure that you are.
I know, I'm
Okay.
I can't today.
And well, you're leaving. Oh, you can't at all?
I'm trying.
Yeah, okay. So I'm recording this, so you have it. In fact, I even recorded this part of the conversation. It's okay, I'm having an off day too. I know how it feels. It's like my words aren't even working. Okay, gang, you ready? I'd like to get this started here. So this song has a long drop. Ignore that. We're going to start it when you hear the first musical instrument. We'll call that the beginning, okay? So I think it's about 8 seconds, somewhere in there. See here. Listen for those sections right now. Who's got the tempo? What's that? Which is? Andante, right? You can walk to it. Said I don't know why I want you to know the Italian terms, just because it's so cool. Andante, okay? Good. You can walk around to that song pretty comfortably, right? Who had the first section here?
16.
Was it 16? Oh, was it? Okay. Was it that late? Okay, 14. Okay. And so that's the intro, right? When did the verse start? Okay. Next section? No, this is not a refrain song. Chorus, right? Because it's got a long whole section that holds on its own. A refrain doesn't stand on its own. How does the song go? Anyone? With the devil, right? Da, 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 da. That's the chorus. Right? Running with the devil. What time was that?
104.
Thank you. And then after the chorus, we went back to just like we're supposed to, and the time on that was. Thank you. And then we went where? No, we did not. Went to the chorus again at 140. And then bridge. In this case, the bridge was a solo, right? At right at 2, right? If that was not easy for you, I want you to start analyzing these songs like there's no tomorrow. This needs to be easy for you. This needs to be easy for you if you're going to get a good grade in this class. Any questions about that? Yeah? Raise your hand if you heard. Oh, Luis.
You know when starts a song and there's that little like piano?
Yeah, there's a little. What would we call that little piano thing? A fill. Yep, a little non-repeating thing. Okay? And for the most part, we'll think of fills as being in the accompaniment part. Because they don't hold on to the lead long enough, and they don't sustain the song long enough to be in one of the other parts. The bass has to sustain the song, the lead has to be in the lead. The accompaniment sort of like, hey, oh, what's up? Right? Pop it in there for seconds, saying hello. Okay? Who heard the first element? Raise your hand if you heard the first element. Okay. Yes? No? Okay. Okay, so let's see if we can hear. So as the elements come in here, what you're going to listen to is one element's going to come in per part. The lead is going to come in at some point, the accompaniment is going to come in at some point, the bass is going to come in at some point, and the rhythm's going to come in at some point. See if for right now you can get, at least when those points come in, don't worry about the particular element itself. Just say bass came in at this time, drums came in at this time, guitar came in at this time, voice came in at this time. And then we'll add the element that they're actually playing in on the next round. Does that sound good? All right, here we go. So you should have written quite a bit right there. I'll back that up just for a second because a lot happens all at once. Here we go again. One more time. Ignore the little fills and stuff. Just get the four main parts, okay, as they come in. Four main parts. Raise your hand if you got all the four parts coming in. Okay. Okay. Go one more time, see if you can get the times on those. And if you have all four parts, see if you can hear what elements at least one or two of them are. You can guess on a few of them. The drums, probably can guess what that part is. The voice, you can probably guess what that element's going to be, right? And then you got the guitar and the bass, and maybe you can find one of them. Okay. The bass, actually, the reason I picked this song is the bass is pretty easy. Right? Okay, let's start to get some of these in. What's the first part that comes in the song? Bass. And what instrument is playing it? The bass. And what element is the bass playing? A pedal, right? It's a big, fat, it's the fattest pedal ever probably, right? Bass, pedal, at 14. What's the next element that comes in the song? The rhythm part, sorry, next part comes in, you're right, is the rhythm part. And what section is it in? Still in the intro, good. And what instrument is playing it? Drums. And what element is it playing? No. A beat. As soon as we have more than one drum thing going, it's got to be a beat. Okay? It's only a pedal if you just keep playing on the pulse. G, G, G. But he doesn't. It goes cha, cha. He has the kick and the snare going, right? Got two different instruments going. As soon as it starts to indicate that there's meter, that there's a cycle repeating, we're going to call it a beat. Okay? If it's just one note, we'll call it a pedal. Okay? So, drums, beat, at 16. What else? When did the guitar come in? Or the accompaniment, sorry. 19? Okay. And what was it playing? Does anyone have that one? The guitar? Yeah, what element was the guitar playing? Let's see if we can hear that. And by the way, I think the guitar comes in the same time as the drums, so we'll see what's going on there. Good. Pedal, fill, beat, ba 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 ba, ba ba, ba 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 ba. What does it do the third time? Ba ba. Ba 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 ba. Fourth time. Ba ba. It's a repeating pattern of notes, right? It's not going anywhere. What is it? Riff. That's a riff. Okay. Now that's a riff where he's playing multiple chords on it, so it's a polyphonic riff, aka chords. But he's playing a riff over the top. That's why Van Halen sounds the way they do. They play a riff over a pedal. And when did that come in here? That was sorry. Yep. And that's basically when the drum beat comes in too. Okay. There's a little drum fill before that, and I could write that. I could write drum fill at maybe 18. And we even had a piano fill at right about that same time, right? Just a second before that guitar comes in. So if we saw these loops on our logic, we would see that bass going right, and we'd just have that same thing over and over, and then we'd see a little drum hit and a little guitar or piano lick, and then bam, it would have the loops would come in right where the bass or where the guitar and the drums would be, right? And he'd sit there, and then he'd have some ahs over the top. He has a couple scream fills, and then he starts singing at what time? 3, right? And melody, right? Almost always somewhere right around 40. Does that make sense? Other things happen there. Let's see if we can hear that point at which that verse comes in. Okay. Oh, we got that right there. What is that? It's a fill. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right? Ow! Right? Where are those in the lead or those accompaniment? I would accept either, right? Okay? I'd accept either. So we can go voice fills at about 30 seconds. Does that make sense? So we're in that area. 28. I won't do that note. Whoa! What just happened there? Fill. What are fills used for? Points of emphasis, to emphasize things, right? Or to counteract things. So what's that emphasizing? That transition to the verse, right? Getting us all ready. It's like it's perfectly set up. Here's your cake, here's your frosting, here's your slice, and I'm going to serve it to you now. It's called the verse, right? So we have a drum, fill at right before the verse 38. If I have the time 39 here, that is when this section starts. So I would never put my drum fill at 38 here. Does that make sense? I wouldn't put it there because it's after, it's got to be before 39. So your drum fill needs to be in the section before. Does that make sense? What else is going on here? What's going on in the... So we heard the drum fill. Now what's the drum doing after that fill? Wait 1 second. Sorry, I went back too far. Drums are playing what? Beat. Is it the same beat? Same beat, right? So one of the things I can do sometimes, if I really want to get into it, I'll name that beat 1. And then I would say it had that fill, and then it went right back to beat 1 again at 39. How about the bass? What's the bass playing there? Pedal, isn't it? It's ridiculous. He plays 2 notes in the whole damn song. Okay? Bass. Now, it is actually a different note, so maybe I put pedal 2 at 39. That make sense? What's the guitar doing? Let's back it up. What's the guitar doing there? Can someone hum it to me? Someone besides Anthony? I'll play it again. And I might call on you, so get ready. Karen? It's hard. Can you hear the guitar? Barely. It starts to disappear in there, right? Okay, so you're going to train your ears when you start listening to these songs as a musical artist to hear all the parts going on at once. It's literally, when I go into it, it's kind of like I zone out almost a little bit. Like I lose my focus on my eyes, and it goes in, and I start to move in the parts. And I can't really hear them all at once, but I can move between them. So I can listen to the bass for a while, and I can move up to the guitar, back to the bass, down to the drums, up to the voice. Okay? There's only those 4 parts. There's only 4. So don't get overwhelmed. You want to stay on the thread of one. Can anyone else hum the guitar part? Try again. There's some crashes there, but I'm trying to focus. I'm trying to just move up the parts. So we did the rhythm, we did the bass. I'm trying to get to the guitar. Now, accompaniment is by far the hardest to hear, by the way. That's why I usually save it for last. Okay. Milton, can you give me anything on that?
The guitar part?
Mm-hmm.
I don't say that it doesn't have a riff, but like
You would say it's a riff?
I wouldn't say necessarily a riff, like a small melody, like for like 2 seconds where it just da-da-da, and then it goes back to the same thing.
Okay. So I think what you heard was the fill there, right? There's a do-do-do-do. But it is playing a riff. It's playing a short repeating cycle. You want to raise their hand and do it for me? Anthony? Or Luis, have a Luis. Since we... Yeah. Da 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 da. And then he goes doodle-doo, which I think is the fill you're hearing. Da 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 da. And then I think he does another fill. Okay. Let's see if we can hear it. Da 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 da. Fill. There's the fill. Da 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 da. And that bass is doing what underneath it? Right? Just hitting that pedal. So see now, I would like you to do, when I play through this time, I'd like you to start with the bass. See if you can hear the bass going bonk, bonk. Move up to the guitar. Move up to the voice. Da-da. Move back to the guitar. And end it up back at the bass. Dun, dun. See if you can do that. Okay? Bonk. Bass. Move up to the guitar. Move up to the melody. Back to the guitar. Now back to bass. Hits one different note there. And hear the bass? It's playing that note. Making sense? You guys look like a deer in the headlights right now.
I feel like this one was easy.
What's that?
I feel like
This one was easier? Raise your hand if I played this for the midterm, you could do it. Okay, okay. So this is maybe not deer in the headlights, it's just you guys focusing, which I guess I've never seen before. Wow.
It's around lunchtime.
Raise your hand if you're like, oh my God. Okay, we got it. Really?
Tired, that's all.
Okay, okay.
Are we gonna get like multiple chances to hear stuff? No? Or?
Yeah, what we'll do is actually you'll have it on your computer and you can play through it as many times as you want.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yep. Yep. Okay, well, with that many people raising their hands then, I'm going to move on to the next thing. And obviously what would come here is we have guitar solo at 2, we know that. We know in the chorus we have some background vocals, BG, Volks, singing a melody at 104, that sort of thing. And we would just keep dropping these elements in. I would expect in this class for you guys to be able to pick out every element in a song. every element in a song. In my rock appreciation, I want them to pick out 8 elements in a song, which means they hear when the 4 things start and then something happens. There's some sort of fill or solo or something changes in the song. But there's no reason if you have a song you like that you shouldn't know every single element in it. And if you want to make a song like the song you like, make a song just like the song you like. Have the elements at the exact same time. Just mirror the darn thing. In fact, maybe I'll make that an assignment in the second or third one. You have a song you like, and then you do your version of it. Right? It sounds like a totally different song, except for this form is the same, the timing's the same, the elements are the same. They just are different versions of them, right? Yeah, that could be a really cool exercise. So, we used to have in my my composition classes and arrangement classes, we used to have to take a classical piece of music and then take a synthesizer and reproduce it as close as we could. It was enlightening. It's like, whoa, you really have to know every little piece in this. So, okay. It's easy to get lazy. I am very guilty of it myself. It's probably why I'm not as good of a musician as I should be, because I do this. I start analyzing, and then I say, well, I'll figure it out later. I won't do the whole song. I'll just start on mine. And I do that when I'm playing stuff or singing or whatever, kind of push off. And probably most of you will do the same. But the more discipline you have, the musicians who I work with here, who are the better musicians, are the ones who are able to be a little more disciplined, right? And Calvin Harris, right? Very simple pieces, very simple parts he's putting together. He doesn't have a lot of those fills and those little things that Van Halen is using here. This is even simpler. But those are Calvin Harris, this song, Seven Nation Army, very simple instrumentation, right? It's only got those 4 parts that they're basically changing in between. We listened to Seven Nation Army where we had a lot of parallel or similar motion, down, 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 where the pedals were moving together. We listened to this where the pedal and the riff are playing separately. Gives Van Halen a different sound, right? So that concept of counterpoint and similar motion is happening. This song is very contrapuntal, very contrapuntal. Okay.
Calvin Harris just tweeted out a video of a song he just made, a new one.
I think we should watch that, or maybe I should have you guys watch it at home. Yeah, that's what I heard. I heard it was really cool, so I'm going to go take a look at that too. Yeah.
It's called Slide.
Slide?
Yeah, with Frank Ocean and Migos.
Is it that one right there? Oh, right here. Yeah. So you can save money. You can drop out of this class now. I guess you can't get your money back. Not have to show up. You can just watch Calvin Harris. You'd be a much better person to listen to than me, probably, right? So. No, he's got a good skill. His songs, I'm kind of getting to the point where like, it's another Calvin Harris song doing the same thing he did last time. But Meghan Trainor did the same thing, right? It's like, this is the exact same song.
Yeah, I hear it.
Oh, well, with that in mind, I will be sure to pull up some bass, all about that bass for you. All right, so when do we get out of here? 2? Yeah, why don't we take a 10, 15-minute break? Basically, I just want you to work on your songs. You've got, for this weekend, you've got to get in. For this weekend, I need you to get in your screenshot of the first song with the bridge included in it. The bridge should look different than the verse. So it should go A, B, B, right? Something weird. Don't be afraid to do it visually, even if it sounds like crap. Then, when you've got your 96 bars all structured, you go back and you make it sound good. And you have another week to just make it sound good. What I want to see is the structure right now and the concepts. Okay? Secondly, the verse. On Thursday, we got the quiz. And I'm going to throw a song at you like this, and I'm going to have all the stuff in Quizlet right here, music elements.
Are we doing like half vocab and half song?
Yep, exactly what we'll do. Half vocab, half song.
96 bars.
Your song is going to be 96 bars. If you look at right here, the assignment, upload a screenshot of your song. Your 96 bar, 2.5 to 3.5 minute song. And that's just because if you speed up and slow down the tempo, 96 bars gets longer or shorter, right? 16 bar verse, notice no intro. 16 bar chorus, 16 bar verse, 16 bar chorus, 8 to 16 bar bridge, 16 bar chorus. lead, accompaniment, bass, and rhythm parts clearly labeled. And obviously, if you only have an 8-bar bridge, your song is now 88 bars long. Make sense? All right, so I'm done for a bit, and the lecture I just did will be uploaded so you can watch it when you're bored. I know